On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, Nikki is in, Fox News is out, Wilson calls the herd, and Biden visits Kiev.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Danny and Marky, and this is episode 290 of the John1911 Podcast. It's about 11 a.m. on Monday, and I got 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time because Danny's Central. I need to specify that because things change so quickly that I don't want to get dinged on something that we cover. If something breaks in the news and why didn't we cover it or information changed because we didn't know. So we've actually been having one hell of a problem dealing with technical issues this morning. 45 minutes trying to get this podcast software to work, and we're finally back online. And so, Danny, how you been?
Very good. Very good. Very busy. Had a few family issues that you know about, but everything's working through and it's going good.
I mean, I think we can. I mean, Mrs. Danny took a little tumble. I think we can say that, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
I just did.
Yeah, that's
so.
fine. That's
Yeah,
fine.
Mrs. Danny took a little tumble, so she's a little banged up. It
And
happens.
through no fault of my own, I want to put that in writing.
So you were the first suspect. The police were like,
"Oh yeah, I was in cuffs." Oh no,
the first, yeah, it was like, yeah, yeah, you and your a wife beater T-shirt in the back of the patrol car going screaming.
I could just see. I look like a pregnant whale in a wife beater T-shirt, so now I really don't wear them.
Well, when a Juicy Smollett got attacked, I'm sure you were on the short list in Chicago.
Oh yeah, my phone rang.
Yeah, justice for Juicy. Yeah. Well, the funny part is the police called you looking for Kanye. They're like, "Where was Kanye West last night?"
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, when you're on that short list, the usual suspect list, you're always being contacted.
Yeah, you're one of like 3 Republicans in Chicago. So.
Oh yeah, that narrowed it down. And
yeah,
I think it was the mega hat that did me in.
Yeah. MAGA hats at 2 o'clock, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning in a blizzard.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
Speaking of mega hat, did you see what Mr. Trump's counterpart, Mr. Biden, did over in Europe over the weekend?
Hold on. Let me get a couple things because we're going to jump into politics. Let me just address this. This is pseudo related to it. We had a listener and a reader reach out and about the reports that Biden blew up the Nordstream pipeline that came out. Seymour Hersh.
I haven't heard that one.
Oh, you haven't? Well, it hasn't gotten that much. Well, then hold on. So bear with me. So there is so you probably know who this guy is. There is a report by a guy about a week ago named Seymour Hersh, and Seymour Hersh is a pretty famous author. I mean, within certain circles, he is. I think it would be fair to say that his specialty would be submarines. I mean, I think that's where he's had his greatest success. So Seymour Hersh is the guy that actually wrote the story about, he broke the news about, it was Operation Ivy Bells, and Ivy Bells was a Navy program where there was in Eastern Russia. So, the Alaska side, the Japanese side. So it'd be west. They would call it east, and we would call it west. So, over there, Vladivostok is a big naval base, and from this naval base, they had an underwater communications cable running from this peninsula to the mainland for something. And what happened was the U.S. Navy the U.S. intelligence services figured out that this cable was there, and it was underwater, but it was in Russian territory. So we sent a submarine to sneak into Russian territory, and it connected a recording device to this cable. And our submarines, if I remember correctly, would go back every maybe month or couple months and pick up the recording device and change it out and put a new one on. And this was happening, I believe this was happening possibly in the 80s. Maybe it was the 90s. I'm not sure. I don't know if this is before or after the fall of the Berlin Wall. But anyway, Seymour Hersh kind of broke the story when all this came out. So anyway, with all that being said, he's got some credibility. He did a report on Substack claiming that the CIA, if I recall off the top of my head, the CIA with their underwater, with their secret scuba guys that are based in Florida, that they blew up the Nordstream pipeline. This really convoluted thing where there was a NATO exercise going on up there. So divers went down, placed explosives on the pipeline, but they weren't set to rig. They weren't on a timer. They were supposedly allegedly set up to explode if they received an acoustic signal at a later date. And so, the argument was that Biden and the administration did not want, like if Navy ships are all over that pipeline and like a few days later it blows up, it looks like they would do it. So basically they came up with this plan, put the explosives on the pipeline, and then months later, a Norwegian P-3 sub-hunting airplane that dropped sonobuoys was flying and dropped normal sub-patrol, dropped a special sonobuoy that made a different type of sound, and that sound triggered the explosion like 6 hours after the plane, And so it's this big, giant drama conspiracy, okay? And so I had gotten on the podcast, and I had publicly stated there's no way Biden did this. I don't think there's no way he did it. This is, it was, at the time, it was too much. Seymour Hersh comes out with this article about a week ago, and it got a little bit of press, but nobody's really picking it up. And we had a reader reach out, and he wanted to know what we thought, and he specifically wanted to know what Ravi thought, who's one of our national security geopolitical analysts. And Ravi has been in this space for 50 years, and so I have a quote for all that. I have a quote for the reader from Ravi, and I want to read that to him. And because I saw the story, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Because Seymour Hersh wrote this, I'm like, it could be true. Ravi says, and I quote, "Till I get a better source than Hersh, who sees CIA and the American hand everywhere, I dismiss this as bizarre gossip." Let's see here. U.S. has no reason to blow up Nordstream and risk retaliatory action by Russia. EU already has a tough embargo on Russia. In my humble opinion, the only ones who gains are Russia, Saudi, and the world's largest oil producer, which happens to be the good old U.S. of A. End quote from Ravi. So, and this thing hasn't caught on, and it hasn't turned into a major news story. And I don't know if it's because the national security establishment is telling the Western media to knock it the fuck off. We're not going to talk about this, or if they're saying this is crazy bullshit. We didn't do this. So that's where we're at.
It sounds to me like it's almost a Tom Clancy story.
Yeah, I mean, some of these reportings by Hersh did make it into Tom Clancy books. Like as theoreticals. Yeah, Tom Clancy learned some of the things he learned about submarines were from Seymour Hersh's books.
See.
I read Seymour Hersh's books back in the day. And they weren't fiction books, at least the ones I read. Now, I'll say with this story, I'll say this with something else. Another story came out a few weeks ago, and it was similarly treated. It didn't become this big, giant story. But, Danny, have you seen the reports coming out of, there's all these weird accidents happening in Russia? Fires, explosions.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, and like
I raised an eyebrow or two on some of them.
Some of them you're just like, this is fucking crazy. And so, something's going on. And the thing is, like, some of this stuff happens in if you're in Russia, it would be in the European side of Russia, near Ukraine, and some of it's even happening far out into the east, on the Pacific side, like way, way, way far away. And so it's like, okay, the Ukrainians are probably not getting people all the way on the other side of Russia. I mean, Russia is so huge. I don't think the average American really understands how big Russia is. And, it's like, well, maybe the Ukrainians blew up the pipeline. Well, the reporting that came out and said that there were Ukrainian teams crossing into Russia, committing acts of sabotage. Some of the teams have gotten captured or gotten killed in gunfights, but this report also said they were coordinating with some Western special forces or intelligence teams, like I'm not going to say non-NATO, but definitely non-American, like some, let's say like maybe the Poles, maybe some Lithuanians, in small groups of 2 or 3 or 4 have been crossing into Russia, conducting operations and doing certain things. And there's enough going on in Russia that you have to accept that this is probably true on some level. The public-facing debate on these stories is there's people in Russia sympathetic to the Ukrainian cause because they think Russia's an evil empire, and they're setting fire to their own shit. There's a lot of dissent in Russia, against the war in Ukraine. But in the interest of the listener here in America, there's a lot of Russians that support the war in Ukraine. It's not just Putin. Also, Danny, this. So there's the Seymour Hersh story that came out that kind of got tamped down. Then there's the story about the teams crossing into Russia and conducting sabotage operations. And some of them have gotten killed. And, this is all going to come out at some point. And there was another story. Do you remember when, what's this guy? There's a guy, what is he? He's not the bishop. There's a guy who's a big friend of Putin in Russia. He's like his biggest cheerleader, but I can't remember what his status was. He's like this pseudo like Svengali kind of like philosopher, pundit, Russian nationalist dude who like comes out and says all this shit. Well, you remember the story. There was he was somewhere outside of Moscow and his car blew up.
I remember that.
And it turns out his daughter was in the car. And we talked about this on pod, and it's like, what the fuck's going on in Russia? Because it's like it's like he's an ally of Putin, a close ally, supports the war, supports all this behavior. And was there a faction inside of Russia that was trying to take him out to weaken Putin, or is there maybe Putin felt threatened by this guy and wanted to take him out and ended up killing his daughter? Well, there was a report that came out that said, oh no, it was the Ukrainian special forces that blew up that truck. They were trying to kill him. And it's like, holy shitballs. I mean, the shit that's going on inside of Russia proper that doesn't really get covered is pretty amazing.
Well, I'm betting that a lot of these actions are turning Putin pretty schizophrenic.
Oh!
I mean, come on, they're doing Putin's own soothsayer got caught. Something's going on.
Well, somebody tagged them. Well, there's been the attacks on the bomber base, the Engels 3, which is like a very important. Engels 3 is like a major strategic bomber base. And I mean, like, I'll read it this way: Curtis LeMay had every intention of dropping all the nuclear bombs on Engels 3 the first day of the war. If we ever had World War III, Engels 3 was going to be gone. Because they wanted to kill all the bombers that were there, because those bombers were going to attack America. And the Ukrainians have been conducting, they run strikes there. so far to the point that the Russians have been forced to move a lot of their is it the blackjack or the backfire? Move maybe both of them, move them farther away from, they moved them out of that base to other locations. They moved some up closer to Finland. But the thing is, this base has most of the logistics and support to maintain these aircraft. And so they still got to come in for shit. It's like, it's a mess. It is a mess. And speaking of crazy ass Putin, there's reports now Putin has stopped flying on aircraft. Putin is now traveling around the country on an armored train because his fear is he's going to be shot down or blown up or killed by sabotage. And the armored train now has been camouflaged. It doesn't look like a special train. It looks like all the other trains in Russia. The only way apparently you can tell that it's a unique is it has two engines on. It has a locomotive on the front and apparently a locomotive on the back. So it always has two engines on it, which you always see. You see trains with multiple engines all the time, but yeah, it's super interesting. He's not even flying anymore.
Well, remember Hitler and Goering had their own trains also that were armored.
The armored train thing is not uncommon. The little Kid Rocket Man in North Korea almost never flies by airplane. He all travels by train. The last time
he flies it himself, remember?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he does. Yeah,
first time sitting in the cockpit.
Yeah, I mean, that was but I think last time he visited Russia, or definitely when he visits China, he takes a train. Well, there was even a report. We're deep into the weeds on these reports, and we'll get to politics. There was a report a couple of weeks ago. There was a helicopter that's part of Putin's. Oh, I would call it the Russian National Command Authority fleet of helicopters. So, that's, like we have them, like Marine Detachment 1 flies the president, that kind of thing. They have a group of helicopters that services senior VIPs and the president of Russia. One of those helicopters did a hard landing crash outside of Moscow a few weeks ago. And it wasn't squawking. There was reports for like an hour, like, was Putin on this thing? Because the helicopter wasn't squawking any IFF. It wasn't like the only way you knew this helicopter was there is you had to physically see it on a radar. And it's like, oh God. And we don't even know to this day, was that a typical Russian bullshit accident because they suck at everything, or was someone trying to kill somebody?
Good point.
I mean, there's been so much crazy shit going on in Russia. So,
Well, pretty soon they'll get balloons.
Pretty soon. That might end up being the title of the podcast. So, okay. So I had to address that for the listener at the top 10 minutes later. Let's talk politics. You were saying, did I see who do what?
I said President Trump's nemesis, he decided to take a small detour and a little vacation while in Europe.
Okay, well, see, the thing is, when you said President Trump's nemesis, I'm literally like, you're not narrowing it down yet. He keeps scoring everybody. So Biden has shown up in Kiev today. Kiev, whatever you're going to call it.
Right, he's supposed to be in Poland or something for a NATO summit, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was going. I don't remember what it was for. I know he was going to go to Poland, and everyone kind of knew he was going to end up going to visit Ukraine.
It's time to pick up this year's interest on Hunter's deals.
Yeah, so
or getting their stories straight now that the Republicans have Congress. Like, hey, why you're investigated?
Yeah, I mean, it's
you lie and I'll swear to it.
Yeah. Well, here's okay. So this begs a question. that I think needs to be answered. What we have, okay, forget if you're a supporter of Republicans or Trump and you're listening to this podcast, just let me say this so we can have an honest conversation. What Biden did by going to Kiev was pretty ballsy. That was pretty ballsy because there's no American military, and you know, we have an embassy there, and we have DIA in the country scooping up, you know, Russian weapons and shit. But there's no American army functioning in Ukraine. It's a combat zone. Zelensky is a valid military target. Danny, watch your microphone. It's a valid military target. So I mean,
there's more than meets. There's more than meets the eye. You know, come on. He's given $500 million. That's maybe equivalent to 1.5 Abrams tanks. I mean, if you really get it in real dollars, there's something more than just the gesture of the $500 million.
He didn't give him $500 million in cash. He's
in supplies. But what
Abrams
I'm saying,
tanks are not that expensive.
But it's still minimal compared to. I think it's just a facade.
The tanks are already done.
But I'm trying to compare the dollars. You know, it's not a lot. It's a gesture of goodwill or something. But I myself, you know, with my cover up theory that I think there's an underlying thing of why they did it, and I don't think it's a goodwill gesture.
Well, it's obvious. I mean, well, okay. So, all right. Okay. So you and I have to hash this out, and we need to do this for the benefit of the listener, because I am certain there are listeners here of our podcast that have radically different opinions on the war in Ukraine. Okay. There's some people will say that the Russians attacked Ukraine, you know, because they had to, or somehow the Russians were provoked. There are some people who will say Ukraine are innocent victims, and this is an unjust war. You know, okay. So there's two sides of that, and then on top of that, you have to lay an argument within the United States. You know, do you support what America has done so far in Ukraine, or are you against what America has done so far in Ukraine? Now, I'm going to go first to give the benefit of everybody air cover, and this is my opinion on this.
Go ahead.
I will say right now, and I have to be objectively honest here, how Biden has handled Ukraine, the war, not initially, but follow up, I think he's done a good job. You know, I was more worried about nuclear exchange in the past. I'm much less worried about it now. I do not believe the Russians are justified in going into Ukraine. I also don't think that how do I say this? I would rather. There's an old phrase in the Marine Corps that says, "Never send a Marine where you can just as easily send a bullet." Okay.
Right.
And then the precursor to that would be, never send a bullet where you could just easily, you know, send $1. And so what I mean by that is, if NATO wants, and it's fair to say, if NATO wants to defend Ukraine down to the last Ukrainian, that doesn't seem to be a bad way to go to me. And I'm not going to give Biden 5 stars here, because the reality is Biden is not the one who initially took the lead on Ukraine. It was the UK. Now, the United States, after the Russians grabbed Crimea and then moved into the Donbass area, the United States and the Ukrainians in particular got religion because they just got rolled by these little green men guys in Ukraine. And we have been, the United States military and other Western powers have been working with the Ukrainian military for 9 years, teaching them about how to fight the Russians, be a modern military, be a professional military, be more organized, orchestrate the battlefield, and don't get rolled by these motherfuckers, because everyone knew they were coming again. They weren't done with just Crimea. They weren't done with just eastern Ukraine. They want the whole country. And then after they take that country, the truth is they want part of Poland too, and everyone knows it. Biden initially was basically telling, was like, you're done, dude. They're going to roll over you. And it was the Brits who were flying anti-tank weapons in there. The Brits were like, we told these people that we would defend them. The Brits, America had signed an agreement that said if Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons, we would help defend them. We have an agreement to do that. And so the Ukrainians gave up their nuclear weapons. Well, it was the Brits that were really flying in anti-tank weapons initially and flying in all the stuff. And I think the Brits should get a lot of credit for the first couple weeks of the Ukrainians not getting totally rolled, because they were flying in as much as they could. And then,
well, Boris went over there for a reason, even though he was out of office. I'm sure it was a clandestine visit.
that comment you just made makes no sense.
Well,
what do you mean?
either do I. You remember when the ex-prime minister of England went over there this summer?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't think it was on more of a fact-finding, not nefarious, other reason that Britain was, I think he was a liaison. I really do.
I don't know. I mean, okay, all right, okay.
I'm thinking that there is more than meets the eye there of why he went. I mean, why would he go when he was out of office if not fact finding something?
Because no. Okay,
something.
all right. So, okay, all right. So, are you saying that the UK and Ukraine don't talk every day?
No. I'm sure they are, but I'm sure that maybe he hand delivered a message. Or I'm saying there's more than meets the eye is why he went.
Well, sure. It's two levels. Number one, Boris Johnson could visit Ukraine to show support to the Ukrainians, but not risk having the prime minister get whacked in a war zone because he's no longer the prime minister. So yeah, that's on its face obvious. The second thing is it's obvious. Boris Johnson visited Ukraine for Boris Johnson, because Boris Johnson tried to come back again as prime minister before the current guy, and after Liz Truss fell, they privately were like, no, Boris, you're done. You're not coming back this time.
Well, as long as it doesn't, turn into a Neville Chamberlain visit like with Hitler.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to accuse the Brits of being Neville Chamberlain, because the Brits, as far as I'm concerned, in the opening probably 6 weeks of that war, the Brits saved Ukraine. Between the work that the U.S. military and Western special forces had done on training of internal foreign military training in Ukraine, and then sending in tons and tons of anti-tank weapons, that saved them. Because everyone else was like, including Joe Biden, you're dead, dude. Like, Biden told Zelensky on the phone, they're going to sack your city in a week.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. But Biden had a nefarious reason for going there, and I'll give you my opinion when you're done.
Well, okay, so all right, so but for the benefit of the viewer and the listener, I'm going into a problem that Biden has. I so far am supporting what the United States is doing in the war in Ukraine. I don't want to send the U.S. military in Ukraine, but if the Ukrainians want to defend themselves. I mean, if the Taliban, or if I should say the Taliban, of course, if the Afghanis had wanted to defend themselves a quarter as much as the Ukrainians did, Afghanistan wouldn't have been a dumpster fire. But the Ukrainians apparently wanted to, maintain their independence and have their own country. And this argument that Ukraine isn't a real country is crazy. It's like, oh, really? Why do they have their own fucking language? Give me a break. So, there's a lot of people on my side of the political aisle, Donald Trump included, that are against the war in Ukraine. And what's going to happen is, as the Republicans exert more control in Congress, in the House, to stop giving aid to stop. Well, it's not dollar. We're not giving Ukraine dollars.
Okay, for lack of a better, you know what I mean.
Well, no,
you're getting into my theory, but go ahead.
It's not know what I mean, because we have to be specific, because the media does this shit all the time. We're sending $1 billion to Ukraine. It's like, no, we're not. We sent $1 billion to fucking Iran, pallets of cash. I mean, if we send them artillery and rocket systems and tanks and guns, that has a value to it, but we're not sending them cash.
Right. All right, Mr. Semantics, go ahead.
Okay, so Biden is trying to get as much as he can over there before certain elements in the Republican Party and the Republican Congress try to shut the door on it. And I find it very interesting, and I'm going to say this, because I realize there are a lot of people on my side of the aisle, Republicans, conservatives, and maybe you listen to this podcast, that are totally against the war in Ukraine. Okay? The Ukrainians have been so impressive. It's like, hey, if they want to defend their own country, and I'm not saying Ukraine, I've never said Ukraine isn't a shithole country. I've never said Ukraine isn't a corrupt country. When we were trying to do business in northern Iraq and we had to source supplies and weapons, one of the countries that we were talking to, and I'm saying we, I mean me, we were talking to were in Ukraine. I've had shit shipped out of Ukraine, weapons related stuff shipped out of Ukraine, because everything was for sale in Ukraine. So I'm not going around pretending that there's George Washington is in Ukraine, and Ukraine is like, I'm not trying to spread democracy around the world, like this argument that George W. Bush was making. If the Ukrainians want to fight to defend themselves, and they seem to be doing it, and the Russians are nothing but trouble, and the last thing we need are Russians on the border of Romania and Poland, which would be a fucking nightmare. Because you know what they're going to start doing. They're going to start sending people fucking over and doing their bullshit stuff. It's like, I support it. I mean, I'd never send a Marine where you just easily send a bullet. Never send a bullet where you can just easily send $1. And if we want to defend Ukraine down to the last Ukrainian, God bless them. It's their country. Let them fucking win it. I'm okay with it.
Well, okay. I agree with you in part. Is Biden is there, and he's there for a twofold reason in my book. Like you had mentioned, he wants to get everything over there he can before the purse string Republican controlled Congress starts cutting things off. I agree with you on that. Another reason why I think that Biden made is for a photo op. And when
I agree 100%.
And for saying that is because the select committee is investigating Hunter, Twitter, all the stuff is really coming out. I think this is a deterrent with a photo op to take some of the heat off the select committee, because they're going hot and heavy into the Hunter laptop. And I personally feel that the personal visit by Biden is to cover some tracks, get stories straight. I really feel that, and that's why they wanted no communication channels whatsoever instead of a face-to-face. I really feel that. That's the nefarious reason why I think Biden is there.
I think you've got the right answer, but I think you're wrong on how you got there. I think you got lucky. Biden is there because he's running for re-election. Biden is there because he has a chance to be a wartime president. Biden is there because
Oh yeah,
Biden,
he's a cherry on top person. That's it. You're right.
Biden is the guy that told Zelensky they're going to sack your country. They're going to sack your city, dude. Like, like the Russians are coming and you're going to lose. You better get the fuck out of here. And then all of a sudden Biden's like, "Hey, you're awesome. You're great. You're winning." So Biden's over there wanting to, get the shine on because Biden is running for president. I don't think, let me just say this about Hunter Biden. Is Hunter Biden guilty of all this crazy shit? And is there double dealing and there's corruption and there's money with the Chinese and all this? Of 100%. 100%. Joe Biden's brother, it's all dirty as fuck. Just like Nancy Pelosi's family, just like a bunch of these other people. But you know what? I remember when a certain person that no longer works here got on a podcast and said, in relation to the stuff that Eric Holder was doing, in relation to Fast and Furious and the other stuff, and basically said Eric Holder's going to jail. And I'm like, Eric Holder's never going to jail. He's the first black attorney general of the United States. He's never going to jail. And then, then the people that said Benghazi was going to destroy Hillary and, they're going to get her, and they never got her. Nothing ever fucking changed. I have no faith that Hunter Biden is going to do two diddly squat things to Joe Biden presidency, because all Biden has to end up doing is be like, I have a son who's troubled, he's got drugs and whatever. How dare you? He gets all, and the media is going to run. The media is going to run. They're going to run interference for him. I mean, I acknowledge if it was the Trump kids, if the Trump kids did 1/10 of what the fucking Biden family was involved in, we'd never hear the end of it. We would never hear the end of it. But sitting around waiting for the mainstream media to finally go vindicate everybody on my side of the aisle and be like, see, you were right. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
Well, come on. Hunter sells a watercolor painting for millions of dollars out of nowhere. Come on.
He sells a watercolor painting. I mean, okay. Oh, I do better than that. I can do better than that, motherfucker.
No, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't.
Kamala Harris's homely fucking stepdaughter is now a runway model because she has this kind of, she's taken this girl that, this is no Giselle Bundchen here, okay? They've taken this girl that is basically like a dorky Lucy from the Charlie Brown cartoon and been like, oh, she's such a unique look. And they fucking clean up her skin and they run her up and down the runways. That is to get access to, so they can go to the parties and they can run around with Kamala Harris and her husband, and they can all, because they're all buddies and they're all happy. That is no different. That is no different. And I hate to say this to people, that is no different. Kamala Harris and her kids, or her stepkid, she didn't have kids, are suddenly becoming runway models, and now all these people who didn't know who Donald Trump Jr. was, suddenly being like, now they all want to go hunting with Donald Trump Jr. They want to give Donald Trump Jr. guns. Donald Trump Jr. was always involved in hunting. He was always involved in guns. But when his father became president, it got a lot more publicity with certain people that wanted to have some shine off the Trump family. And that's fucking true, because that's the truth.
That's like Paul Pelosi becoming a hammer salesman.
All right, let's talk about that one for a minute, because look, we got to clear the air on a bunch of shit here.
I knew this pod was going to be a good one.
And you have still not stated your public opinion whether you support how the United States has been involved in the war in Ukraine up to this point, for the benefit of our listeners.
I don't support it.
Okay,
and I'm glad the Republican Congress is going to be pulling back on the purse strings. For one reason, I just believe that Biden and company, be it Hunter, be it this one, be it that one, with the whole Ukraine thing, I just think there's a whole bunch of under the table deals.
There's always under the table deals. During World War II, there were people in the United States that were arrested for profiteering. It happens. I mean, if you go to Ukraine, dirty ass Ukraine, and you walk around there and you finally pick up some dude that's, maybe he's taking Javelin missiles and he's selling them for money or something, whatever crazy things will end up happening, and you use that to discredit the entire war effort on the Ukrainians, it doesn't hold water to me. Because that happens everywhere. And I find it, I'm going to give this example. I just want to make two, I'm going to give two examples to prove a point. What we are doing with Ukraine right now, and everyone's like, oh my God, they're going to get us into a war. The Russians are so shell-shocked by how poorly that they've been doing and how effective Western trained militaries are and Western weapons, that they realize, and we've told them explicitly, that if you use a nuclear weapon in theater, we will eliminate every Russian military unit in the Black Sea, and we don't have to use nuclear weapons to do it, and you know that you can't stop us. If Russia were to use a nuclear weapon just to be dickheads, we would decimate them in a response that wouldn't even require a nuclear weapon, for one. So now the second thing is, when the Russians were supporting North Vietnam during the Vietnam War, people in America weren't screaming and hollering that we were about to start World War III. I mean, there was always a concern, don't cross the border. And also, I mean, it came, and we knew it, and every time we knew this happened during Vietnam, and we downplayed it, but there were incidents in both the Korean War and the Vietnam War when American forces would go up against North Vietnamese fighter aircraft, and it turns out it was Russian pilots flying the fucking things.
Well,
shooting at Americans, killing Americans.
I know, and that's been happening since Douglas MacArthur in the 38th parallel, when he was removed from his command. Same shit.
What does Douglas MacArthur have to do with that?
Well, you said it's since Korea, and
yeah, it's been going on in Korea,
right?
I mean,
because they said he's going to start World War III by doing it.
Yeah. Okay. So, it wasn't like, I mean, what are we going to do? Are we going to, if we realize that there's, the Russians were pouring weapons into North Vietnam, but Vietnam, and it wasn't like, we're going to mine Haiphong Harbor, and it's like, well, we got to be careful because Russian supply ships could come in there, and we didn't do it, whatever. Then eventually we did it, okay, and it's like, oh my God, we're going to start World War III. It's like, okay, let's all just calm the fuck down here. Everyone realizes there's things we can't do on both sides because you're going to lose. Now, let me say that. I'm going to find it very interesting. If I could be king for a day, and if I could read people's minds, all the people on the Republican side of the aisle who are in my political spectrum, of all the people that say, we got to get out of this war, we got to stop supporting the Ukrainians, we got to get out of this, we got to cut the money off. Well, so what's the ultimate goal here? So eventually the Russians do win? Okay, so, and all the people that do want, basically, could happen. I wonder if those same people in any time over the last 45 years have ever bemoaned the fact that the U.S. government decided to not give air support to help the South Koreans or the South Vietnamese when the North Vietnamese army came across came down into the South and were rolling up all the, and we had told them when we left we would give them air support, but then we decided not to, and they got rolled up. If you bemoaned leaving them behind and not helping them when you said you would help them, but then turn around and wanted, and theoretically you could end up doing the same thing to the Ukrainians, I wonder how you rectify the two. I just wonder.
Well, because there's actually with the Republicans, who was it? I was listening to the accountability of the equipment being sent to Ukrainian. There's basically no accountability, but yet,
I don't know if that's true.
well,
There have been cases where
I think
okay,
it was my
are you
girlfriend Marjorie Taylor said that.
okay? Just because some politician says something doesn't mean it's 100% true. Are
Well,
there like I remember there was some Ukrainian oligarch that was somewhere, is it France or Switzerland? He just got arrested, I don't know, like a month or so ago. I think because for corruption or something. And I don't know if it was the Western nations who basically told the Ukrainians, indict his ass so we can arrest him because he's stealing or he's involved in some kind of corruption and this looks bad, or whether it was the Ukrainians that told the French or whatever to arrest him. But they're doing, I mean, this isn't like wholesale theft, okay? Like this, I don't buy the argument that, I guess my fundamental problem with people that are against giving weapons to let the Ukrainians fight for themselves, my fundamental problem is I am suspicious if Donald Trump was president and he was doing the same thing, how many of those people would suddenly be for it because it's Donald Trump? And and then the people that are for it now would be against it because they're the party that's not in power. And when I can apply a political lens to change people to flip their positions on stuff. I hate it when people behave like that,
welcome to
because
politics
it
101.
well, but you know what? They're still right and they're still wrong, and there's still good decisions and bad decisions. And short-term politics to make bad decisions to get over to hurt us all in the long run to get a short-term win, I think is the worst kind of politics.
Biden and company.
That's not what does that even mean, Biden and company?
Well, okay. Let me reiterate that Biden is there for the photo op, and he's there to cover his ass with certain Ukrainian people. I really feel that. All right. Anything it seems, and it just seems that they. Not that I'm.
Okay, now wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. When President Trump, when Antifa set fire to St. John's Episcopal Church across from Lafayette Square in the White House. Okay,
Right. I
when Trump
remember
was
it very
president,
well.
remember that? And then Donald
Yes.
Trump basically had the National Guard. I think it was the National Guard and
Secret Service.
No, it wasn't the Secret Service that did it. The Secret Service are with him, but I don't think the Secret Service cleared. They cleared the park so he could go over there. And Trump went over there with.
With a Bible.
No, hold on. He went over there he drug Esper with him, the Secretary of Defense, and who else was with him? He drugged something. I think it was Milley with him, and held up the Bible. That's a photo op. With the Bible, I mean, Trump didn't have to go over there. Did you howl and scream about the Bible? Did you howl and scream about the photo op?
Because he was praying for the church.
Oh, stop! Stop. Okay, so let's keep the ball rolling here because we have to get into some stuff here.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to cover.
Biden is running for president. Okay, everything I'm seeing is he's running for president. And you know what? If you're Joe Biden and you're in the White House and the people that are surrounded, I'm not talking as a Republican. I'm thinking about how they think. They're doing great. They think they're winning. They think that they've had a lot of successes. That the economy hasn't totally collapsed. That they think that maybe possibly we might be able to get into 2023 and not have some crazy recession. Maybe it's just a minor slowdown. That's they're hoping. I'm not saying I agree with it. They're hoping, and they've got every reason right now that they're looking at it like, bitch, we running again. This is on. And so, with that said, Biden's running again. Nikki Haley has declared her candidacy to be chosen as somebody's vice president.
I did see that.
Yeah. And Trump is running. Now let's talk about Trump and DeSantis. Have you seen the latest poll numbers on Trump versus DeSantis as of 2 days ago?
Dead even at 34%.
No.
That's the one I last seen.
The last one that I seen, Trump beats DeSantis by 14 points right now.
Really? I just seen one last week. They were dead even at 34%.
This was 2 days ago.
Okay, I did not see that.
And so a lot of people had gotten on social media, in the worst days after the January 6 hearings, Republicans and Democrats, and maybe somebody on this podcast, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I'm looking at you, said Trump is probably done. He's not gonna run again. He's not gonna be president again. And I said, no matter what we think or feel right now, it's not going to have a hill of a beans difference until we get to Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. And, people can have their opinions, but the facts are the facts. And right now, Trump is alive.
Oh, he is. I'm going to go out on a limb here today, and I'm going to make a prediction. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah, that's what people listen to this podcast for.
All right. Trump will win the nomination. It will be a rematch between him and Biden, but my prediction is Mike Pence will not be Trump's pick for VP.
Well, gee, that's not really going out on a limb. No kidding.
I like the odds.
I mean, give me a break.
Well, let's see if I'm correct or not. Actually, I think Trump's going to pick a woman. I really
Trump's
do.
Okay, I'm not going to play the woman thing. I'm going to say Donald Trump's job, as any other candidate's job, is to pick the best person to drag enough electoral votes across the finish line to win.
Right.
It has nothing to do, and Trump is not stupid enough to pick a woman. Maybe he is, I don't know, to pick a woman, hypothetically, right now, it would be Nikki Haley.
Nope, I disagree.
Well, right now, I mean, she's the only one that's in. Okay, again, we're 2 years from this election. None of this matters right now. But does Donald Trump even consider Nikki Haley, or does he not trust her?
Correct on the second point. He doesn't trust her because she declared first, full well knowing that he's going to declare. Is she?
He's already declared. He's already declared.
All right, but she declared. Now, is she just trying to get her 15 minutes of fame, or
Nikki Haley has been preparing to run for president for the past 10 years.
Yes, she has, but she does not have the money, the support. Maybe here and there, but I don't think she is enough to drag electoral votes across the board. I don't think she brings enough to the table. That's why I don't believe that she would not be a good fit. Trump's going to win the nomination. I mean, she's just pissing in the wind.
We don't know what the future is going to hold because things can change. Because I remember, I said this on pod before. I'm going to say it again. Okay, I remember when in 1998, and the Republicans were starting to pull up their dudes to run for president, and there was some guy who was related to George Herbert Walker Bush, his son, that owned a baseball team in Texas, and he was going to run. And I'm like, who? Who the fuck? Who dis? Like, what are you talking about? And then I remember, there was some guy who, like, if you were a Democrat, you knew who this guy was. It was like some guy named Barack Hussein Obama that'd been in the Senate for 5 minutes. He was going to run. He was in Iowa. And, and it's like, who the fuck is that? And like, oh, whatever, I don't know who that is. And look what happened. Right now, if you if you look at FlightAware and you travel and you track the travel of people that are going to Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina, mind you, Nikki Haley's from South Carolina. Mike Pompeo has been making the rounds. So he's in the mix. He's definitely thinking about running. He's been showing up at the primary states.
So is Pence.
Pence.
He's making overtures.
He's trying. I don't think Pence isn't viable. The Fox News, they kept floating his name there for like a month or so ago, and it was just like, give it up, Fox News, give it the fuck up.
Fox News has been enough trouble.
Yeah. Oh my God, we'll get on that one in a minute. Fox News is in big trouble. But none of our listeners know this because if they only watch Fox News, they have no idea. So it's Pence, Pompeo.
They're also rants.
They've been doing it for a while. You can say Nikki Haley's an also ran. Unless you're Don Lemon, Don Lemon, you can't say if you're Don Lemon, you can't say that. But the rest of us, we can say.
Not in your prime.
Yeah, not in your prime. Yeah,
come on, get it straight.
Get it straight. No, well, don't. Hey, when we're talking about Don Lemon, don't say get it straight.
It's Don Lemon.
Don Lemon. So the other dude who is actually definitely been slowly making the rounds with some of the donors and been some of the is Tim Scott, from the senator from South Carolina.
Right.
Tim Scott's black senator from South Carolina, Republican.
I like him too. He would be, I don't think he could win the presidential nomination, but Trump might be smart to bring him along for the VP.
The thing is, that goes a long way. Tim Scott goes a long way to definitely bringing South Carolina, bringing
all the neighboring states, Virginia, North Carolina, all of them.
Virginia is still is a solidly purple state. It's a toss-up state.
But they also have a Republican governor.
It would help him. It would certainly help him. It would definitely help him in Georgia. It could theoretically help him in Virginia with the black population, unless they call him an Uncle Tom, which
remember Virginia has with Youngkin, they now have a Republican governor. So I think it would help in Virginia.
That reminds me. Glenn Youngkin is 100% in the mix for running. He just hasn't declared yet, but he's been making the rounds. And Virginia has a 1-term limit on their governor, so he's all the right people, like the Bill Kristols and all those people. They all like Youngkin. I don't think. The Trump blood and marrow base doesn't. They don't give two shits about Youngkin.
And Youngkin doesn't have enough national exposure yet.
Not yet, but the people that like him are the people that like him. So, but did you see? And again, things can change radically. Okay, remember Hillary was going to win. Like, oh damn, Hillary's going to be president. Shit, I can't believe we're going to do this, and she wasn't president. Did you see the air ball that they were floating? That it was the Oppo research. Trump had picked it up, but it was Oppo research. I think Democrats had dug up pictures of DeSantis when he was a very, very young school teacher. Drinking with these girls.
With everybody holding champagne bottles. I've seen that.
Or maybe it's beer or something. I don't know what they were holding.
Whatever.
But yeah, and it's interesting because they've got, these girls, they said, he was like a young guy that graduated from Yale. He was like they're like in high school, 17, 18. And the picture was apparently taken after these girls had graduated and he was 24. And they all said that he was cute and he was young, but he was arrogant, but they thought he was cool to hang out with. But now they've gotten some of these girls, now that they're adults, to be like, oh, it's so inappropriate. It's like, yeah, okay, sure thing. Here we are. We're going to be digging all this. But you know what? You never know. Never know what's going to get dug up on people. And, running for president is like being, put in the washing machine 50 times in a row. A lot of these people have never truly been vetted. Look at Joe Biden. they cover
Right.
shit up.
Well,
They
isn't there also, if you declare to run for president, you automatically get $1 million in Secret Service protection?
No, you don't get Secret Service protection. Biden obviously has it. Trump has it because they're former presidents. Hillary had it and she still has it because she's a former first lady. You definitely get Secret Service protection after the convention. And what they instituted that kind of stuff after the assassination of Bobby Kennedy by Sirhan Sirhan. Basically they've gotten to the point where they institute Secret Service protection for people when they feel like they're far enough along in the political process that it could change the outcome of the future of the country if somebody commits a political assassination. So no,
Right.
there's no Nikki Haley has no Secret Service protection. None of these people had.
Oh, that's right. When Donald Trump first ran, he had his own security detail.
Donald.
Yeah, he did.
Donald Trump
the
is
first
old.
time he ran.
You mean his personal? Yes,
Right. On his
and
own plane.
he got Secret Service protection. He got Secret Service protection. Definitely when he. I'm trying to remember. Did he get it after the convention? I'm thinking he got it before the convention for some reason. They had basically decided at this point that we need to at least give him some body cover. Like I've seen Don Jr. with Secret Service protection. It's not much. I mean, it's basically one or two guys. One guy's semi close and one guy's farther away. To basically be the 6 o'clock cover.
Right.
In case someone comes in close, you don't realize there's another agent behind them. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we'll just have to see on that. So
Speaking about cover, we've been on politics a bit. Do you think Fox News is running for cover now?
If you listen to this podcast and you only consume right-wing media, if you're listening to this podcast and your main source of news is the Fox News website or Fox News channel, you have no idea what we're about to tell you. But Fox News is probably going to lose a $1.6 billion lawsuit from Dominion voting machines. It's bad. It's real bad.
Well, they still have the right to appeal, though, and it's not. There's one more court Fox will appeal to, and it might get lowered. But the point being is that verdict of the 1.6 was ridiculous.
What was ridiculous about the 1.6?
The amount for defamation.
Well, okay. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true at all. So hold on. Okay, so wait a minute. All right. So Dominion Voting Systems is in the business of running voting machines for, races, whether it's state races, local races, county races, federal races, voting for union representation, UAW stuff, all kind. They could
anything that tallies a vote electronically.
They could have contracts with certain companies or organizations, so people that are not local can vote more easily. And what was it? Sidney Powell? What's going to sink Fox News? Sidney Powell is going to sink Fox News. And Sidney Powell, those of you who listen to this podcast don't remember who that is. She was the woman who was supposedly one of Trump's lawyers until Trump disavowed her and said, she's not my lawyer. She never represents me, because even Trump knew she was crazy. But all of us, I'm not sitting here and saying to you, listen to this podcast, that I'm so smart and you're not. I am not saying that. I remember when Sidney Powell got on national television and she started talking about she was making the theory of her case. and she was talking about the voting machines, and the Venezuelans owned Dominion, and she said that there were algorithms that were doing this, and she's releasing Operation Kraken. And there were a lot of us who don't know what we don't know, but we look at this and we say to ourselves, Sidney Powell is an officer of the court. She is in good standing. She is representing the President of the United States. She has to see something here to be making these comments. There has to be, she may not be able to understand all of it, but she's seen where something doesn't add up. And she's coming forward, and we're all like, she sees stuff. She's detecting problems, and we need to have an investigation. Turns out she never saw anything. She had no evidence of anything. She was making stuff up out of whole cloth. And here's the problem for Fox News. Fox News got on television and said that all the arguments about Dominion voting, that basically they were see, it was Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson. I don't think Tucker is quite as bad, but he's bad in other areas. Maria Bartiromo, and was it Lou Dobbs? And so that it's Fox News and Fox Business, but they all work for News Corp. And they all got on television and said Dominion is rotten to the core. I'm summarizing. Dominion's rotten to the core. The voting machines are not counting the things. You vote for Trump, and the vote goes to somebody else. And all of these people, well, definitely, I don't know about Bartiromo and Lou Dobbs, but they have an email correspondence and text message correspondence. Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, and Tucker Carlson in private saying this stuff is fake as fuck. There's no evidence this is real. Sidney Powell is crazier than batshit. And our viewers believe this stuff, but we don't believe it. So we're going to keep basically reporting it and saying it like it's true, even though we don't believe it's true. And that's what's killing them. And the first indication that we had that this was going to be bad was they had a deposition with Sean Hannity. And they asked Sean Hannity a real simple question. They said, Sean, when Sidney Powell was making these allegations about Dominion and the voting and the election and all of this, did you believe this? Did you believe she was telling the truth, or did you not believe it? And here's the thing. You're like, all Sean Hannity has to do is say, I believed it. And he's basically off the hook. But here's the problem. Sean Hannity's no dummy. And Sean Hannity knows that in Discovery, that they got all the emails, all the text messages, all the phone records, and they're going to be able to get other people to testify under oath. And at the same time, when Sean Hannity was going on national television parroting these conspiracy theories in private, he said it was all fake. He said none of this is real. They all said Giuliani was crazy. Nobody will work with him. They said that the Sidney Powell is crazy. All this is stuff, and they didn't steal. They didn't steal the. If they did steal the election, they didn't do it with. If they did steal the election, which is the thing of the lawsuit, it had nothing to do with Dominion voting machines. But they got on television and they didn't say that. But in private, they were saying that. And Fox News is going to have to write a huge fucking check, because how does Dominion as a company, like, people listen to this podcast, since when do I, Marky at John1911, ever even know, like, name a voting machine company, Marky? Like, I have no fucking idea. Like, why the fuck would I know that name? Well, I know what freaking Dominion is because it was parroted in the media as this corrupt company. How does Dominion ever, going forward, ever stay in business, ever get contracts, ever, even if Dominion's vindicated, there's such a stinking cloud over them as a company. Nobody would ever bring in Dominion to count votes, because as soon as something's contested, oh, here we go again, it's Dominion, nobody's going to give them a contract. Their business is done. They are done. Okay? And not only are they done this year, they've been done since 2020. They were done in 2021, they were done in 2022, they were done in 2023, they were done in 2024, they're going to be done in 2020 and 2030. And you start thinking about all those sales that they didn't get, lost business, valuation of the company. Is it a private company or publicly traded company? Was it a private company? They put a bunch of money in because they wanted to take it public and have their big buyout. And all of this, you can easily make an argument and you can raise this up to a lot of money. And so this $1.6 billion isn't that far off.
Hello.
Yeah, I said this $1.6 billion isn't that far off.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of lost revenue. But, well, but
revenue and valuation.
Yeah. But that's, on the Fox side, CNN and MSNBC, I'm sure, have ruined people and companies also. So it makes you wonder. It's just crazy.
Okay, all right. And this is. I know I've probably people that listen to this podcast. I think people listen to this podcast because we tell the truth here. Okay, we always tell the truth, even if people don't want to hear the truth. Or I'll tell you at least if I think something is true, I'm going to tell it to you. And so, if they stole the election from Donald Trump, they stole it because the media made up shit about Trump and pressed the gas pedal on things they shouldn't have pressed the gas pedal on, and they ran air cover for all the negative things about Joe Biden, his fucked up ass family. Okay? And for all the people for all the shit that Fox News is now wrapped up in with this Dominion lawsuit, I'm going to say this publicly too, within 18 months, Sean Hannity will leave Fox News. Mark my words. Sean Hannity will, quote, retire. He will retire with his girlfriend, and they'll go to Texas or somewhere because this is going to be such a huge hit, and he's going to be done. He'll do his radio program or do whatever, but Sean Hannity will be out of Fox News within 2 years, within 18 months, I think. But for all the shit I'm kicking on Fox News, it would be real interesting if somebody could come up with a lawsuit with Discovery, and we could talk about MSNBC and Rachel Maddow and this Russian collusion thing with fucking Donald Trump, because it's the same goddamn thing. Rachel Maddow got on MSNBC for 2 years, and every day she told her viewers, the rats are fleeing the ship. They're going to get him. Indictments are coming. Trump's going to jail. And every day, people on MSNBC were like, he's so guilty. They're going to get him every day. And then when, what was the a former FBI guy that did the investigation? What was his name?
Michael Steele? No. It was a Steele dossier. I
can't remember his name. I can't remember. I can see his face. It turns out he showed up and it was like he's senile, which will come to that. That's a foreshadowing into the next statement. But the thing is, when
was
that all came out, no, it was with the guy before Comey. I can
Rothstein?
see him. He's like, say the name again.
Rothstein?
No. I can't remember his name. It doesn't matter. But, after basically the whatever report it was called came out, and Trump was basically vindicated, but the media didn't say he was vindicated. But it was like, yeah, he's still president, and there's nothing really to see here. MSNBC's ratings went into the tank, and shortly thereafter, Rachel Maddow decided, I think I'm going to work part-time for now, and they're going to bring in some rotating guests, and Rachel Maddow's basically out. She wrecked them because she told her viewers for 2 years that this was real, and none of it was real. I don't know if she believed it was real, because I haven't seen her private text messages and her private emails, but
Have you
She
seen?
definitely wanted it to be real, and don't confuse what you want to be true versus what is true.
Well, what is true is, have you seen any of the excerpts from the select committee grilling the former Twitter executives? My God, what a cover up they did.
The one that I know I haven't, but
Oh, you have to watch
who,
them.
who's the woman? She's the Indian woman. She's kind of a pretty woman.
Right.
She's the former
Gotti.
chief.
Her last name is Gotti.
Yeah, but what's her? I want to say Vijay, but that's not her name. Is it? Is it? It's like it's. She's their chief legal officer, but they had whatever the term they had for it, and she was basically running the company. She was such a biased, putrid piece of crap that her getting her comeuppance, is definitely worth the price of
Oh,
admission.
you have to watch some of these because it was
Is it
just
Vijaya?
it's something crazy like that. But anyway, one of the Republican Congresswomen, when questioning her exactly, basically came out and said, this is a discovery. The arrest part comes later, and you should have seen her face. You should have seen all their faces, to be honest with you.
I
What
don't know
I'm trying to figure out what they're going to
okay,
be arrested
okay,
for,
okay, yeah,
but
okay, all right. Okay, go ahead. Finish your statement. You're trying to figure out that they're going to be arrested for?
what they're going to be arrested for, unless it's deception, I don't know. I don't know, something, but let's just say they are squirming in their seats like you've never seen.
Just because a politician gets on television or in the media and says something crazy or fucking stupid doesn't mean it's real. I
Right.
literally just spent 15 minutes talking about. I mean, like, talking about the Russia stuff. Adam Schiff got on national television. That's why he's not on any of the intelligence. He's not, why he's been his ass kicked and said, he's seen things. It's like, I've seen the intelligence and there's something here and Donald Trump better be afraid. Turns out there was nothing there. And so, this woman getting, because the cameras are on, and so she's got to preen and whatever, and go and I think her name's Vijaya. I don't know why I think her name's Vijaya, and I'm not going to look it up, but I will say I get to. She's a very pretty woman. Saying, "Oh yeah, this is the discovery and the arrests are coming." For what? What are you
That's
gonna
what
do?
I'm trying to figure
Yeah,
out.
there's no arrest for what? Like, what's the arrest for? Okay, we maintain at the John1911 website and on our Facebook page a moderation standard. I mean, the reality is the moderation standard is based off what I say. I'm the ultimate arbiter of it. But I always try to be fair and I try to be objective. And if someone insults me personally, I'm much more lenient of it as opposed to like commenters insulting each other.
Right.
But you can kind of insult me and like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, they're kind of half right. I'm okay with it. But it's like whatever standard I choose to delete or ban, that's my company's standard. It's just, I mean, what some congresswoman is going to first comes a discovery and then we're going to put you in jail, Marky, for what?
But
Twitter's a private company.
right. But the best thing about this is a twofold. Number one, it all boils down to Elon Musk taking the company over and firing these people. Number two, and most important, the Republican controlled House now can convene the meeting and subpoena these people, which they did. Do you think if Musk, even with taking over the company, if the Democrats had retained control of the House, that these hearings would have even taken place? No.
No, of course not. But does
You
it really
know,
matter? Does it really matter? No. Okay, all right. Okay, so let me again. We're kind of to the same problem that we have with all of this stuff. Okay, do I need Eric Holder to go to jail to prove that the federal government decided to let weapons flow into Mexico to create chaos and kill people to use that as a cudgel to pass to pass gun laws, more restrictive gun laws in the United States? No, because I've seen the facts. I don't. It doesn't. It doesn't. I've seen the facts. It doesn't matter. It, I mean, do I need Elon Musk to to take over Twitter to tell me that Twitter has a lot of bias issues? No. Do I need Congress to have Vijaya, whatever her name is? I think her first name is Vijaya. Whatever her name is, again, very pretty. Come in and question her under oath to tell me that Twitter was a dumpster fire. No. It's like people everyone's waiting. The biggest problem with American culture today is everybody feels like it doesn't count unless they score the point. It's like I don't need someone to go to jail to prove to me that they're dirtbags. I see the facts. You're dirtbags. You're a dirtbag. And I mean, honestly, politicians, congressmen, men and women having hearings that are broadcast on television just so they can get up there and preen instead as opposed to actually answering really tough questions under oath. If I was a congressman, I could literally be like, okay, give me the answer to this question, 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 give me the answer to this question. This question, this question, this question, this question. And I could ask these questions and form them as a yes or no answer. I could get 10 or 15 responses. And then I could make a case that you have sunk yourself or you've had to reveal something, as opposed to these long soliloquies like I'm giving right now. They're really just about gas bags like me talking for the camera. I'm just saying, Congress isn't really about finding the facts. It's about promoting themselves so they can run commercials and run for re-election.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, we've been going long on politics. Do we have any industry stuff?
Hold on. I want to do one more thing on the politics. So did you hear that the rumor is that Dianne Feinstein's been, Fetterman's back in the hospital.
Yes, I did see that. With anxiety
the media's lied about Fetterman, that he's fine, and he's not fine. He's been in the hospital twice now in like a week.
They're saying it's anxiety attacks.
I thought it was depression.
Okay. Well, one spectrum to the other. What's the difference?
Well, he can't actually have a conversation with anybody. Literally, if I were to walk up to him in the Senate and I'd be like, yo, dude, how's it going? You want to go get something to eat? He literally can't process the words coming out of my mouth. You have to type it out. He has to read it.
Wow.
And so it's apparently caused a big depression issue for him as well. And so he's depressed. And it's like, yeah, maybe he shouldn't have been, but the media ran cover for him, just like they did Hunter Biden, and whatever, and But then Dianne Feinstein, she's been rumored for a long time to basically be functionally senile, and but no one says anything, and it's so bad. The press started publicly. Her press her campaign office started openly, but off the record, telling the media that she's not running for re-election. She's not even.
Well, she's been there since the Magna Carta was signed.
Yeah. So, and then here's the thing. So what happened was they finally got her. They were like, "Are you going to run for re?" She was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then her staff finally got her to issue a press release, and they're like, announced that you're not going to run for re-election and whatever. And she's like, okay, I'm not going to run for re-election. And she agreed and she signed it, and it's all legal, and they released it. And then like a day or two later, she's somewhere and some media person's like, Senator Feinstein, do you have any comments on, any follow-up or on saying that you no longer plan on running for re-election? And she looked at the camera and was like, what are you talking about? I didn't release that. She doesn't even remember what she signed 2 days before. And it's so sad, but that's how bad it is.
It is.
She's non-compos mentis. But anyway, yeah, industry stuff. I heard CMP, so the civilian marksmanship program up at Camp Perry, they're getting a big load of ammunition in the spring. I think 30-06 ammo and some possibly M1 carbine ammo, 30 carbine, and they're going to be selling it. I don't know if it's new or if they've got a load in, but I know many people that because you can't get surplus World War II basically ammo anymore because it's all used up.
Really?
So CMP's getting a big old pile of ammo in. So I know a lot of military
Buy
guys
a
are going to be
pallet
ready.
full.
Yeah, but the thing is, how much is it going to be? Like, it's like I don't know. Like, CMP they got to make money. So
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
true
We'll
too.
see. Yeah, we'll see. Wilson Combat.
Oh, Marky's gun of choice.
Marky's gun, my gun of choice. This episode brought to you by Wilson Combat.
You had to sneak that in.
Not really, but I mean, they look, if there's a criticism of Wilson, and I don't think I'm being unkind because maybe it's because my brain
I
doesn't.
have a huge criticism if you ever ask me.
What? Okay, go ahead. They listen. Well, you
Price.
don't price. Well, that's fair.
I mean, come on.
We'll
They're
talk
not
about
in.
your son. We'll
Wait,
talk about
they're
your
not an
son's
every.
Lamborghini in a minute. Okay.
Look, they're not an everyday. Joe's price point gun. They're just not. Are they very good? Of course they are. They're an outstanding weapon. But
there is a guy who's a custom gunsmith. His name is Joe Chambers. And he basically it's him and like two or three, maybe two other gunsmiths. They hand make all their stuff. They literally hand make it. It's like a 5-year waiting list to possibly get a gun from Joe Chambers. He has a line of gun that he calls the WMG, the working man's gun, and I think they start at $5,000 or $6,000. It's like, okay, it's like,
where are they working at Wall Street?
Yeah, it's like I don't know who that's for. Most of the dudes that buy his guns, they ever see pictures of their guns, they look like they've never been even holstered. So, but anyway, Wilson Combat, the one criticism I think I can make of Wilson Combat, and it's a benign criticism, is like their catalog of how they organize their guns has never made a lot of sense to me. Before I started buying Wilson Combat guns, like I would occasionally look at their gun, and I just couldn't even keep it straight. Les Bear was one. There was one kind of like that as well, but like the Wilson stuff, it was just all over the place. Like some companies will have good, better, best. They'll have like they may call a gun a premier or the top shelf or the whatever or the super grade or the I don't know, whatever they want to do. But then there's like different tiers of guns. And Wilson's has always been very convoluted to me. Like it doesn't make it. You have to know what the guns are. Well, apparently Wilson has gone through their catalog and they looked at the numbers. I'm assuming this. We don't know this. Wilson hasn't told me this. But Wilson has decided they have shut down as cataloged items over 50 different makes of pistols from their catalog.
Really?
Yeah, including my I think is the best single stack traditional 1911 ever made, at least a 9mm. The Experior single stack full size gun. I don't think they've sold hardly any of those guns. I do videos on them. And I think some people are I think it got some of the Wilson people upset, but you can get any of these guns made. You just order it. Like, and like the truth is, like the whole like I just said, the Wilson Experior full size gun, single stack gun is to be the best traditional 1911 ever made. I have a gun over here. It's an Ed Brown 9mm 5-inch gun that basically doesn't run at all. And my long-term plan is I want to send that gun to Wilson. And I want to tell them, I want you to do everything that you did to your Experior gun. I want you to do that to this gun. I want you to cut one of the lugs back. I want you to wave cut the rails, all of it. And that's how much I believe in it. So, and they'll still do it for me. It's just a custom order. It's not that big of a deal.
Like that little comment you made. I need to get away from the workbench. I liked that.
Oh my God! So I spent all day yesterday at the John 1911 range. So we have picnic shelter, we call it the shooting shelter. There's a an old cattle barbed wire fence right behind it. Like if you see pictures, people listen to this. If you see pictures, there's like a lot of scrub and a scrubby fence posts and stuff behind the shelter. I decided to cut all of that back. So I spent all day yesterday with the tractor, which is awesome, pulling up fence posts, which is super easy. All you do is you get your 30,000-pound tow strap, you connect it to the drawbar on the 11,000-pound Massey, put the strap at the bottom of that fence post, and literally in first gear, like in idle, it literally just pulls it right. One of the fence posts, it was almost 3 feet of fence post it pulled out of the ground. I was like, oh my God, I had no idea how deep that thing was.
You're getting your money's worth out of that tractor.
I am. And so what we're doing is I pulled up the fence post and I'm going through with wire cutters and I'm trying to find all the barbed wire, cutting the wire off between the posts first, pulling the wire out by hand in all that scrub because I can't hit it with the bush hog and hit that wire. However, this needs to be said because this is a lesson learned. A tractor has a pull behind bush hog on it. And, if I were to wrap around a barbed wire, I would need to get under that big 2-spindle deck to get that wire out, which with the tractor now, theoretically, I guess I could, disconnect it, turn the tractor around, lift it, and then, and lift the deck and then, support it, then get under there. But the thing is, with this lane shark bush hog that connects to the front end loader that goes up and down, I was cutting into that fence line and I heard a noise and I'm like, did I pick up some barbed wire? I literally turned off cut the hydraulic power to it, lifted the lane shark, turned it to me so I can I'm in the cab and I'm looking at it spin down and I'm looking and I'm like, there's no barbed wire. We're good. But if there had been barbed wire, I could have just gotten out and cut it because it's totally safe. And just disconnect it. And these are all lessons that I learned through years of agony with the old pull behind bush hog that I was doing.
But always remember something. If you ever do pick up a piece of barbed wire like that, even with the tractor off, on a hydraulic system, there's always a lot of reverse pressure. So if you were to cut the wire, those blades could spin back. So you block the blades.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I don't.
Come on, I know what I'm talking about.
I didn't know that.
Well, now you do.
And now I do, but I don't know. I don't know if...
Because as the wire spins tight, there was still hydraulic pressure going to that. As you relieve the pressure, it's going to be back pressure and it's going to release the loosening of the blades going back. That's why you always, when you have anything wrapped around the spindle, you block those blades because they will spin back.
I didn't know that. I don't know how I would lock the blades.
Oh, it's very easy. You put a big piece of 4x4 wood underneath them, as you're cutting the wire so they can't go anywhere.
Oh, okay. So wedge it up in there and jam it?
Yes, to where it can't go. Otherwise, that would be your head or your arm.
That's good to know.
Well, that's why am I on the payroll?
I know. I'm going to have to look into that because I'm with the WR Long thing. So, okay. All right. So let me ask you this. So so we're talking tractors and I don't want to do it too long, but hey, we talked about the war.
Oh, you'll talk about that all day.
I know. I love my tractor. So, front end loader up, power down the tractor, just, power down first, I turn off the
PTO.
I throttle back the tractor.
Okay.
I disconnect the hydraulics. I turn off the hydraulics spinning that front end loader hydraulically powered.
Correct.
Because it's hydraulically. It's not a PTO shaft on it. It's
It runs
using
off the hydraulics, right?
The front end, and so
Right.
I do that, and then if the tractor's off,
Correct.
and I turn all that off, if I articulate the front end loader controller around, doesn't that relieve the pressure on the hydraulic lines?
No, there's
Like
always
if it's off, because I've always heard, like, if you can't get your front end, if you can't get your like your third function, they call the third function on front end loader, if you can't get the connectors to connect because there's too much pressure, what you do is you take your front end loader controller in the tractor and you cycle it around once or twice in a circle. And that opens up the valves to relieve the pressure in the hose lines, the feed
right.
lines.
It
But wouldn't that
never.
same pressure also, if I relieve the pressure, that would keep the thing from spinning backwards? But
No, there's always pressure in the lines. You never relieve 100% of the pressure. Never. Unless you have, the only way you can do it is if you have quick connects. You slide it back, you pull the quick connect hose off. Then you take like a hammer or
I
a
do have
screwdriver.
quick connects.
All right, well, let me finish. You undo your quick connect, okay? And
Uh-huh.
on the male end of the quick connect, you'll have a ball on the fitting. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. You stand to the side because there's pressure in there. You
And you
push
push
in
it,
on the
and
you push in on the ball, then
it
the
squirts it.
pressure will come out of the hose.
Okay.
Do you understand what I mean?
I do, actually.
Because when you're hooking up anything hydraulic, okay, you have your female end, which you slide your slide back, you pull the hose off. There's pressure from the ball of the male end all the way to the unit of what you are using. So by pressing in on that ball, it will take I usually use the back end of a screwdriver, the handle part, off to the side, and I push in on it. Fluid will come out, and a lot of times the pressure will come out. And until it stops, that's how you relieve the pressure off of that.
Okay. That makes sense.
But what would you do without me?
I don't know. We're gonna have to all get together and have dinner soon. Well, maybe have even Kraken come into town. So, um, let's see here. What else is there going on? That's about all I have really with the with industry stuff. That's we oh, did you hear the story of the guy in Kansas he was found dead? He was hunting. This happened a little bit ago. We just missed it. He was hunting, and he had a gun. I think it was a shotgun, and I guess in the back seat. And the dog, I guess the gun was chambered, and the dog apparently hit the trigger. He had a dog in the back seat, and the dog hit the trigger on the gun, and it killed him.
No, I did
It's
not
like,
hear
yeah,
that.
it's like I've heard of stories of dudes like guns falling and going off and hitting dudes, or dudes pulling long guns out of vehicles, the barrel end and the trigger catches on something, or the hammer, like if it's got an external hammer.
Oh, that's
And
stupidity to pull that barrel first.
yeah, I know, but that's it hasn't really happened anymore, but it's happened in the past, like in the 50s and stuff. So, um, let's see here. Let's see. I don't know. We've been going for a while. Anything else you want to
No, actually, I have to set up something with you because we're due to go down that way again, and maybe between you, Kraken, and myself, we'll coordinate our times and see what's going on. That's
Okay.
all I
Well,
have.
okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do the police blotter. We'll go ahead and toss it. So,
Alrighty.
I've got three stories. So, two of them are local, which I thought was interesting, and then we'll do. No, let me see. No, no, one of them's local. I kicked one out. So, the first one is there was a story here local to Cincinnati. I guess these Asian fingernail manicure, whatever they called, nail salons are pretty competitive, and three women have been indicted for trying to burn down their competing nail salons here in Cincinnati. And what they did is they found surreptitious agents to go into these salons, and they're like, go in there, get your nails done. Take this big package. It was basically like a napalm bomb, and leave it in a bathroom or something, and burn down the stores. And I was like, holy shit, like it's big, and all the girls have names like, Wan, Tran, Chan, and all that. And it's just like, oh my God, it's terrible.
No,
The
that's something you
second
get your
one,
claws into.
yeah, that's the second one. This is a story that came out of China, and this is like a 12-year-old. This person was prosecuted, but they settled it after the person repaid it. So a guy in China borrowed $17,000 from a friend and wrote a promissory IOU, like Chinese
IOU,
person,
yeah.
yeah, IOU, I promise to pay and whatever the terms are. And then the guy got the money and he left, and the person that had the promissory note was looking at the note, and within an hour, the ink started to disappear. The 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 guy wrote the promissory note with
I don't know,
disappearing
you
ink.
shit.
Yeah, and it's like, what are you, 12? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here? So, the person who had the promissory note started taking pictures of it and the document, like you were watching it fade away, and you're like, and he still has the original, which still have some kind of chemical on it. Like, obviously, they don't have CSI in China. Just put a black light on it, and you could still see the writing. But
That's
I
funny.
guess after getting dragged into court and getting dragged by 1.3 billion Chinese people, this person has decided to repay the $17,000 in 17,000 American is what it works out to be, because
Wow.
his inner 12-year-old super, it's a perfect crime. I'd have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids. I mean, the only thing this story needs to make it better is a Great Dane and a Scooby Doo van. I'm just like, what the hell am I looking at?
Or if it was written on flesh paper.
Yeah. So the piece de resistance of the police blotter comes out of Oakland, California, and I'll give you the short version. A left-wing activist baker who is advocated for abolishing the police. Okay, like big time, like major radical lefty, and like wants to abolish the police and do all this crazy shit. She was outside of her bank, or a bank. I was assuming it'd be her bank, and a couple guys came up, teenagers, I think, and robbed her. Out, she was getting out of her car, and they jacked her right there, getting out of her car, jacked her in her car. I don't know if she was going in or coming out with money. Something she was doing at the bank, they jacked her. And so they take off running. So, we should, like equitable justice and like no punishment, and everything's insured. She decides, well, you're not going to take my fucking money or whatever it is they stole from her. So she proceeds to start chasing after them. And subsequently, when she corners them, she gets run over, and as they for fleeing in a car, and gets mowed down and killed. And now that she's dead, her family is now trying to say that they don't want the people that murdered her prosecuted, and they've raised $130,000 last I've seen on a GoFundMe to, I don't know, to spend $130,000 in her name to spend it for restorative justice or something. And it's like, it's like, okay, she lived by the lack of the law and she died by the lack of the law.
That's right.
But I still question if she's so okay with this behavior, why did she run after him after they robbed her? Because they obviously needed the money, right? 400, whatever the reason, oppressive country, whatever reason. But she decided she wanted her shit back. And I also wonder, if she hadn't been run over and caught them, would she have filed a police report or called 911, which I imagine she probably would have. And so, it's an interesting story, but it's, people wonder why, a lot of people that, even if they're liberal, they're leaving California.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, like I've said it once to you, I've said it 100 times. When I went to LA last summer, I'm glad LA is in LA. I won't go back. I just can't. Too blasé for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, like, I mean, I just don't know why people want. I mean, all the major cities in America are in trouble because a lot of the libs are letting him just fall apart. But anyway, we'll save that for the next episode.
I feel sorry for our listeners in California, and they have to live there. I really do.
I mean, 40 million people live in California. I think it's the most populous state. 40 million people. You know? So, all right. Well, this wraps up episode 290 of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures or links to how to buy disappearing ink, please go to our website at John1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.
Bye-bye.